But this morning on Twitter, someone sent me a link to Brother Polight. I have no earthly idea who Brother Polight is. I'm sorry. But I'm having to wonder a little bit if he has something to do with Black Hebrew Israelites or whatever. Because he makes some strange comments here. And the whole conversation going back and forth is about Jesus being a white man, and Jesus couldn't have been a white man. And I don't know any semi-trained evangelical anywhere that thinks Jesus was a white man. But at the same time, Jesus wasn't a black man. It's gone. It may have, but I put it in the charger because I didn't know you had taken it out. So I figured it had been left there and was dead. So, some of the stuff that says here is a little bit on the weird side. But what I wanted you to catch was the technical. Okay, so this is sort of weird. My watch just vibrated, and I'm wearing a watch big enough today to read the messages, and so my son's telling me this man is a Black Hebrew Israelite. Okay. There you go. I remember, I've told the story before, but I remember the Christmas that we gave my dad his first LED, not the red ones, but I think it was LCD. No, they were blue. Yeah, okay, but it was blue and they glowed in the dark. Alarm clock thing back in the late 70s, somewhere around there. And just how amazed he was, and we were just all like, oh, technology. And now I'm sitting here through something that didn't exist back then called the web, talking to people all around the world. And my son can just use WhatsApp, and it shows up on my watch. This is, I'm old enough to remember Dick Tracy with the television watch and how that was just completely sci-fi, man. That was just like, no stinking way. No, I will say whatever I want to say, Josh. Now he thinks he can correct what I'm saying via the watch too. No, don't think so. Because they ain't the second part, but they are the first part. So there you go. Anyway. So somebody sends this to me, and it's incredibly bad argumentation, but most of the stuff you get from these folks is incredibly bad argumentation. But it's the illustration of what we saw. Remember, how long ago did I do that thing with Elder Rakah? I mean, that was like 2.5 years ago. Yeah, it was about 2.5 years ago. And one of the things that got repeated over and over again was, the guy's going, well, that's Strong's number, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, sir, I don't care about the Strong's number. I actually teach Hebrew, and the word is this, and it means this. And that became sort of viral. It just went all over the place. And the thug life thing and all that. I don't even get half of that stuff. Anyway, well, that's sort of what you got here is you've got you just look up that Strong's number, and it's like, no. And so let's take a listen here to what is said, and then we're going to go back over it and go, not quite. So here we go.
You feel me? Like if I go to Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, and I see the word virgin there, and they talking about Emmanuel and Jesus being born, and then I see the word virgin there, and then I go into a Greek concordance and I look up the word virgin, and then I see in the Greek that the word that they're using for virgin just means an unmarried woman. Then the Virgin Mary isn't necessarily,
it changes
represents a immaculate conception.
Yeah,
it means a woman who was not married, who had this child. But I will get cursed at, and I'll be disrespected. But I will also say It's not me. In any one of the Bibles you choose to read, if you get one that has a corresponding concordance, you can look up the concordance number and you can see what the words actually translate to be. And thus, no matter what, if they say, not in my Bible, that's okay. But in everyone's concordance, it's going to have the same definitions. So,
yeah, okay. A couple things. I don't know if you caught it because whoever the interviewer was talking, some Vlad or something. But did you catch? We're going to look at the Parthenos, Alma, Bethula. We'll take all that apart in a moment. But did you catch a really common misunderstanding on the part of this fellow? He talked about the Immaculate Conception. He talked about it's not the Immaculate Conception. What do you think the Immaculate Conception is? Now, this is a common mistake. I mean, lots of Roman Catholics make the same mistake. It's just the virgin birth of Jesus has nothing to do with Immaculate Conception. Immaculate Conception is about Mary's conception in Roman Catholic theology. It is a concept that developed much later in church history. It was defined as a dogma only a few hundred years ago. And it is the idea that Mary was conceived without the stain of original sin by the preemptive application of the merits of Christ to her. That's what the Immaculate Conception is about. It has nothing to do with Parthenos, Alma, anything. Total disconnection there. So there's a basic fundamental error. And so now I'm being told on Twitter that he's not Hebrew Israelite. So there you go. Twitter fight. Yeah. Okay. Now you got everybody all upset. So that is an error. But let's consider, because this comes up and we've covered it, especially around the holidays, because starting sometime late October into November and certainly in December, we all know that at that time of year and then February, March, April, around time of the resurrection, the media just drags out stuff that they put into a folder a long, long time ago and just recycle it about all the errors of Christianity and everything else. And so you hear all about how Isaiah 7:14 doesn't say virgin and blah, 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 blah. But where this guy is confused, he's confused on a more basic level. The argument that is normally used is that when you go back into Isaiah 7:14 in the Hebrew text, the term that is used is ha'alma. Ha'alma. Hine ha'alma hara wa yoledech. Yoledech. Ben, a son. And the virgin or the young child, the young woman, will give birth. Yeled is the root there, to a son, and you will call his name Emmanuel. With us is God. And historically, this had a fulfillment in the past. That was its minor fulfillment. It has a greater fulfillment when you follow Emmanuel all the way from here through chapter 11. You'll see that it's a repetitive phrase and it's associated with messianic prophecies. And we don't have time to go back through that right now. I've presented that a number of times on the program. You can look it up. Anyway, the point is, Alma in Hebrew, not in Greek. He's talking about a Greek concordance. First of all, it's not a concordance, it's a lexicon. What you need is a lexicon where you actually look up roots, meanings. You've got Halo, and you've got older ones. You've got BDB. You've got Kohler Baumgartner. There's all sorts of Hebrew Aramaic lexicons, And then if you're talking about a Greek lexicon, you're not talking about a concordance with numbers. No serious scholarly lexicon has numbers. So you can just sort of do the numbers thing. It sort of assumes that if you're going to be doing this kind of stuff, you might want to know the language, you might be able to read it or something like that, at least to a certain level. And so if you're looking at Greek lexicons, the standard Bauer, Donker, Art, and Gingrich, 3rd edition. But there are numerous others that are available, and so many of them now are available relatively easily, not overly inexpensive, but relatively easily obtainable in the various Bible programs, which are now available for your phone and your iPad and everything else. I use Accordance. They're available in Logos. There used to be BibleWorks. It's gone out of business now. You've got Olive Tree, and you can get these resources in all of these programs and look these things up for yourself. And there you go. Anyway, so these are lexicons that you're going to be utilizing. And the area of confusion, other than the language that the gentleman has, is that there is no question about the meaning of the Greek. He mentioned the Greek. He didn't mention Hebrew. He mentioned Matthew 1:23. And in Matthew 1:23, it's hey Parthenos. Now, Parthenos, you have the Parthenon in Greece. There is no question about its meaning. There's none. A Parthenon. The whole point of these temples were the Vestal virgins that were there, and the term has very specific meaning of a virgin. What he has heard and has strangely transmuted into something else is that Alma in the Hebrew can simply mean a young woman of marriageable age. And it could. But Matthew's not quoting the Hebrew, he's quoting the Greek Septuagint. And the Greek Septuagint uses hey Parthenos. So before Jesus is born, 200 years before Jesus is born, the Jewish translators of Isaiah translated Ha'alma as hey Parthenos. And that's what Matthew quotes in Matthew 1:23. So if you look up Parthenos, it's going to say virgin. If you look up Alma, it's going to say young woman of marriageable age or a virgin. It can refer to a virgin. There is a specific term, Bethula, for a virgin. But in Isaiah 7, the emphasis is upon time frame in the initial fulfillment of the prophecy. Because what's it about? Well, if you remember, it's about the kings that have come against Israel, but by the time that this woman gives birth, those two kings will have gone away, and so that it's a time frame issue. When it becomes cited in the New Testament, it's no longer the time frame issue. The emphasis is upon the nature of the sign itself connected to Emmanuel. And that's when you then look at Emmanuel as it's used in Isaiah 7, and you follow all of the prophetic material from Isaiah 6 through Isaiah 11. And in each chapter, you end up with messianic texts that are cited in the New Testament. So the New Testament writers see this concentrated area of messianic prophecy, and they're drawing from it in bits and pieces in the New Testament. And so all the stuff about Immaculate Conception, all the stuff about that's just completely out of relevance. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. The Greek was in error. He was talking about a dispute over the semantic domain of Alma in the Hebrew. And even then, the question then becomes, well, I don't know what his thing is. Maybe he doesn't believe Matthew's inspired, or I don't know. I have no earthly idea. If he does, then Matthew is utilizing the Greek Septuagint, and hence the meaning must be determined in that way. So there you go. The problem is that kind of a statement carries a lot of weight with people for some reason, and the vast majority of people are not prepared to explain where the error is to be found. And it's a very clear error, and one that we should be aware of.